Hey Sean, what went into the decision to trade Ernest?
Football decision, what we felt like was best for the football team. He's a great guy, was amazing for us for a few years, but we felt like this was best for our football team.
Did you have a conversation with him before the trade?
Oh, of course. Yeah. And there was multiple conversations. He couldn't have been more of a pro, Sarah, like I mentioned to you guys yesterday. And feel really good about the five inside backers that we do have on our team.
And do you have a plan for who's gonna wear the green dot?
We're working through that kind of stuff. There's multiple candidates. You sound like me right now with your raspy voice, but it is we've got a lot of guys that are candidates that are great, communicators from the front to the back. And so there's a couple of guys, but we will get into the specifics of that over the next couple of days.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary,
Hey, Sean, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Gary. Good for you, man.
Fantastic. What will you guys at all be looking at possibly adding a veteran linebacker to that group?
No, we feel great about the linebacker group. So you guys are all shocked, but we feel really good about, I have a ton of respect for Ernest, and I'm excited about what he'll do in Tennessee and what he's meant here. But this was a decision that we feel like is best for our football team with the guys that we have. I think Troy Reeder and Roseboom are excellent. I think Jake Hummel's got versatility, and I couldn't be more impressed with Omar Spates and his emergence as a young, undrafted rookie free agent making the team. Eli Neal's another guy, and we've got a bunch of different things that we can do personnel wise with some of the guys that we have on the back end and on our front. And doesn't take anything away from Ernest, but every decision that we make, and I think you guys know me well enough now, is what we think is best for our football team, and this is in alignment with that.
Just looking at it, you and some of the teams you're going to play with very good run games. Having lost Aaron, having lost now Ernest, is there some concern that you're going to be vulnerable to those kinds of power running games?
I think we got respect for the opponents we play. I'm really confident in the group that we have, Gary.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Maria,
Hey, Sean, I was wondering if it changes what you want to do, but it doesn't sound like it.
No, it doesn't. And these are ongoing things, and we've got a responsibility, and so it's something that we really feel good about. I feel really good about our defense on all three levels. We've got a lot of guys that are willing to compete. It's a lot of new faces. You don't replace guys like Aaron. He's a special player. We've talked about that over and over again, and I think Ernest is a great person. He was really impressive for us and what he did. But we're confident in that group, and we don't, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into this with the evaluations and with the things and the amount of time that both personnel, ourselves as coaches, and the work these players have put in. And I'm excited for you guys to see this thing come to life. We're real surprised. I'm excited for our group to go play.
Over the past couple of weeks, what you saw out of the players that you're talking about, do you think you would have even thought about making a decision like this if you hadn't seen the growth?
I think this is something that's a reflection of a long, going back to the off season into training camp, previous experiences, or some of the confidence in some new guys. And so that's really what it was, something that's been an ongoing evaluation, just like every player on our team. And this is no different than that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Adam,
Sean, without Ernest, the defense has now lost Raheem and all three captains on the defensive side from last year. Do you worry about that leadership churn given all the young guys that defense has to rely on?
No, those are tremendous leaders that you had mentioned. But I think we've got a lot of guys that a year ago you guys didn't necessarily know who some of these young players were. And I think that every single year there's an opportunity to be able to kind of change. I don't even want to say change the narrative, because I don't really care about that. I think it's more about guys continuing to assert themselves in positions and roles that are earned. I'm excited. Two captains that just got voted on our defense, Quentin Lake and Kobe Turner, couldn't be more well-deserving. And we've got other great leaders that got recognition with Tre'Davious White. I think Cam Curl has great leadership. You look at Troy Reeder and his ability to be able to communicate, as well as Christian Roseboom. From the front, BY taking his second year, Michael Hoyt's leadership. You get Darius Williams back. So there's a lot of players that I'm very confident in. And then some of those rookies that we added. And again, that's why you play football. These are great challenges. You love those guys. They've gotten opportunities to be able to move on or to be able to go retire. And those guys were tremendous, valuable leaders for our football team. But it's about the 2024 Rams, and I'm excited to go to work with this group.
When you say this is a football decision for the best of the team, that might sound funny given the way that Ernest has contributed, especially this past year. I'm wondering if you can elaborate at all, whether you mean long-term, short-term.
What I said. How do you take what I said? What do you think that means?
That it was best for the football team.
So that's what it means. It's best for the football.
But that could mean
Based on
long-term,
the
that could mean
evaluation of work.
short-term. That could mean long-term, that could mean short-term. I'm just curious if you could elaborate.
Based for short and long term.
Okay.
Jordan.
You guys are funny. Oh, you're funny.
Jordan.
Hey,
Let's
Sean.
hurry this up.
Hey, Sean, with the guys that you have at safety, pretty deep group. Chris Shula's experience working with that group in the past and actually scouting some of those guys who have sort of come in. Do you see sort of some of his identity emerge as a DC with that group? And we've seen them working a lot in different ways that maybe we haven't seen in previous years. So do you expect to really lean on that group in your sub packages?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, Jordan. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for some different things to come to life. You know, we've had a lot of success and there'll be some similarities in terms of what Chris has learned from the different coaches that we've had. But I think the beauty of it, whether you look at Wade, you look at Brandon Staley, you look at Raheem, they all had, there's a personality that a play caller or coordinator has that you can kind of see through the defense. And I think there's a lot of guys that are in alignment with the mental and physical makeup that we're looking for that match Chris's demeanor and disposition. And certainly that flexibility, but really his exposure to all three levels, Jordan, I think gives him a really unique perspective. I think the play style of a lot of the different players that we have will give us certain flexibilities. And certainly that can be reflected with the versatile skill sets of those guys on the back end, as you're talking about.
And then what went into the decision to keep 3 running backs?
Those guys really separated themselves. You know, I couldn't be more confident in Kyron. I think Blake Corum has come in and done an outstanding job, Jordan. And then Ronnie Rivers is a guy that's as improved as anybody on this team. The trust and the confidence that we have in him and really all three of those guys, I'm super excited about. And that's usually how many we end up having on our 48 when we end up, having to decide on that. And those guys were just a step above everyone else.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Stu.
Hey, Sean, I think I counted 10 rookies on defense. Obviously, there's a mix of veteran experience and talent in there too, but just in terms of meshing all of that and creating an identity for that unit, what do you make of the blend of both of those things and how that can affect that identity?
Yeah, here's what I think. I think there's a youthful exuberance. I think there's a youthful, identity. I think that was illustrated last year with a lot of the youth that we ended up having. And then obviously Aaron moves on, but I thought his imprint that he made on some of these young guys, the Kobe Turners of the world, the Byron Youngs, you even look at the influence in a positive way that Michael Hoyt's had. But when you talk about adding 4 guys to the front with Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Tyler Davis, Brennan Jackson, that's a big deal. When you talk about, some other guys that we've added with Cam Kitchens that we end up drafting, and then 5 undrafted free agents make the roster on defense. That's a cool thing. You see Omar Spates really make his presence felt in the preseason, and you felt that in practice. You've seen Eli Neal have some really good bright spots. You've seen 2 safeties, with Jalen McCullough, and then obviously we drafted Cam, and then 2 corners in Josh Wallace and Charles Woods. Thought Josh was awesome. We've had some unfortunate injuries to that spot, but Aubrey's leadership, their understanding of the techniques and the fundamentals. And then I thought Josh got an opportunity to get a bunch of reps against an excellent offense in the Texans and showed really well, showed that he's played in a lot of big time games. And what a tremendous amount of credit to those guys and really our coaches and our personnel to identify the kinds of guys that we really want and to have 5 guys truly earn it. That's the thing. Everything is going to be earned on this team, and that's been consistent. That's what we're going to do. And that's what's reflected in the decisions that we've made, even with a couple guys that have been tremendously impactful to our team.
And then just as a quick follow-up on Omar Spates, when I asked you about him on Saturday, you mentioned his communication, ability to defend the run in the pass, concept recognition, all of those things. Obviously, in light of moving on from Ernest, what, if anything, does that mean for the role that Omar could potentially have beyond just contributing on special teams?
Yeah, I think he's developing. I think, all those things that you just mentioned are great traits that you're looking for in linebackers, Stu. And I think he saw a great example. And you mentioned Ernest, it's a good example that he saw. But I think he's got really good examples in that room. Greg Money Williams does a great job with that group. I think there's a clarity in terms of what we're trying to get done. Some of the different things that are being emphasized within the framework of that group, whether we're in some of our, 5-1, whether we're some of our nickels, some of our base defensive structures, some of our, multiple DB sets. And I've been really pleased with that group. And he's a guy that's had a lot of good examples, both from players that are still here and then obviously with respect to Ernest. But he's a guy that I think has a real bright future for us.
All right, we'll move quickly through these last three. Wyatt, Eric, then you, Gary.
Zach Thomas and Xavier Smith seem to be two guys that performed well with their opportunities. What was the rationale for not having them on the 53, and what were kind of some of the other tough decisions that you had to make with that roster?
Yeah, those were two tough decisions. You mentioned it. I thought, starting with X, thought he did a really good job, continuing to improve. The thing I think he can be proud of is he's really improved. He's done a really good job. I thought he showed well in terms of his decision making, his ability to field punts. Kyron Williams is going to be our punt returner, and it's another opportunity for him to get touches and impact the game. And you feel comfortable with that because of the confidence in Blake Corum and Ronnie Rivers, being able to spell him if need be. So that was what has made it tough for X. He didn't do anything not to win the punt return job. It's just, Kyron is a guy that we want to continue to have different ways that he can impact the game. And that's one that's going to be reflected. As far as, just keeping 6 receivers, I thought those 6 did a good job. There was just a little bit of a separation. Those 6 guys, have really improved, and X was right on that fringe, but it was a tough decision. As far as Zach, I like Zach. Zach's a great dude. I thought he showed well early in camp, and then I think really more than anything, it's not what he didn't do, it's what Logan Bruss and Bo Limmer did do. I thought they improved. I thought they made last pushes. And from the interior offensive line spot, you've got Steve, you've got Jonah, you've got Kevin Dotson. And then with those other guys that'll play behind him, Logan Bruss and Bo Limmer represent, some guys that have really increased our depth. Obviously, even Noteboom has the ability to flex inside. But I've been, it was really more of a credit to the other guys, not necessarily what Zach didn't do. And you certainly mentioned 2 guys that were tough decisions there, Wyatt.
Eric.
Coach, as of today, who are the LB1s at the mic?
Troy Reeder and Christian Roseboom.
And then what did you see out of the entire group that made moving on from Ernest palatable?
Yeah, it's never easy. And here's the thing. I don't want it to be misunderstood. You wish him the best. I think Tennessee is going to be a good spot for him. I think when you look at Denard taking over there as a coordinator, a lot of the things that you saw from those good players in Baltimore, I think will be reflected for him, and we wish him the best. But what we saw in terms of the body of work, and and it was tough too, because there was a lot of opportunities that he missed, that he wasn't available to get reps and really be able to be a part of some of the things that we emphasized. And then when you do, you're a little bit behind the 8 ball, and those other guys did really well. And we work hard at trying to be able to evaluate it. Those 2 guys did great. Jake Hummel's been kind of a guy that's always, been right there. He's been a special teams contributor. And then those 2 young rookies that I talked about, they really showed well, and they made an impact from that position. Some of the different things that we're asking of that spot. I think those guys did a really good job of grasping it and moving forward. And in all fairness, Ernest, there wasn't maybe as many opportunities just because of some of the time missed, but that was what related to the football decision. And, they're never easy, but I think you guys know me well enough that there's a lot of work and intentionality, that you love people, but you do have to make sometimes tough decisions, and would never make a decision that I didn't think was best for our football team and gave us the best chance to compete.
And then, Q Lake has been named as the captain. Can you talk to me about his leadership development from being drafted until now?
Yeah, it's natural for them. You know, I think the best leaders are the ones that just, it's the way they move and they act and interact and respond to all things. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, I can remember when he came in, he had a little bit of a knee issue that he wasn't able to practice early on in camp, but it came down in the training camp at UC Irvine when we were staying at the hotel, and there was a light on in the DB room consistently night after night at about 9:30, 10 o'clock of a guy that wanted to have a big picture ownership and understanding of what we were trying to get done. He's a football junkie, loves it. He's a great competitor. It's why he's a safety, and then he's able to so seamlessly, because we needed him to transition to the nickel spot last year, and his position flex and his ability to communicate. And he's got such a nice way about himself with people. And it was damn near unanimous, you know, the support that he got from his teammates. And I think that's a real credit to the impact and the influence and the way that he inspires guys to want to be better. I love this guy, and I'm really excited that he's in a leadership role that's been earned, and he doesn't have to do anything other than just be himself.
Wrap up with you, Gary.
Sean, I wanted to ask you about the captains, but before I just want to make sure I was clear what you said. Regarding Ernest, you're saying the time he missed during off-season workouts and training camp didn't give you enough time to evaluate him in.
No, I'm saying it was hard because you were behind in terms of getting the amount of reps. So it made it a little bit harder, it made it a little bit more challenging to eval. And then you're a little bit behind because repetition is the mother of learning, and he missed out on a lot of time.
And so his body of work coming into the over the last few years was not enough for you guys to have confidence that he could help you this year?
Certainly take all that into consideration, Gary, but the body of work, every year is a new year. I think you've seen that. We've had to learn that when you go from winning a Super Bowl to winning 5 games the following year. And so it can be a good guideline, but you got to earn it every year, and that's everybody.
Okay. And then finally, in terms of the captains, you mentioned Quentin and Kobe. Who can you share with us who the other captains are? Are there any other new ones?
Yes, I can. It'll be, the consistent cast of characters. It'll be Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Rob Havenstein on offense. So 5 total captains for our team. And then that'll give us an opportunity to represent and really recognize guys throughout the year. But those 5 were well regarded in terms of the votes from their peers. Kind of far, there was kind of a gap between those 5 and everybody else. And there was a lot of guys that got recognition that were certainly well deserving of that.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.